All right. Good morning there. Let's see. I made my first little mistake. I had the screen sharing up on there. Hi there. I'm Steve Weber, and today is Wednesday, August the 12th, and welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show. And we are excited to get this show on the road and get it started today. So I got a guest coming up, and I've got a nice monologue planned, and I want to continue the speaking about our third anniversary Spirituality Gone Wild party that we had last week. So that's what we're going to cover today. And I also want to announce that I am working on other interviews and lining them up. I've got one scheduled for this afternoon, more of the long form interviews. So that means that more guests coming in, got a couple scheduled for next week. So starting to get the lineup filled in where we'll have guests on a regular basis, and I'll be able to announce them in advance. Now, I am able to announce tomorrow's guest. Tomorrow's guest is going to be Safe Bucksy, our very own Spirituality Gone Wild's very own host, fellow host, Safe Bucksy, host of the Safe Surgery. And Safe, it comes to us from London, UK, and his show appears on Thursday night. So we'll get into that conversation tomorrow with him. All righty. So that's what's happening. That's what's happening today. And so far, other than that one little screenshot there, yesterday I went live without, or I didn't go live. I started the show and forgot to turn on the start the broadcast button. And Monday we had the screen freeze up. And so anyway, we're learning how this all works. It's a lot of fun figuring out how to get these screens up and running. Like I always say, you gotta walk, talk, chew gum, skip, and every third step do a spin around and go backwards. So little by little, I'm learning how to do that. All righty, let's go ahead and jump into today's show. And what I'm going to continue doing is talking a little bit about last Saturday's event, the Rainbow Connection Infinite Collaboration, our third anniversary of the Spirituality Gone Wild, and we had a great time. And Debbie G put together a fantastic show, brought together a whole lot of people. And so what I'm doing is just sort of giving you little highlights of it, spending about 2 or 3 minutes the last 2 mornings. This is the third day I'm doing it all, and just kind of giving you a flavor for what that all was. The first day we talked about some of the bigger picture, the other organizations that were collaborating. And that's why it's a rainbow, because there's a whole lot of different people doing this type of work, sending out messages, having their own tribes of people. And so we're collaborating, and we're trying to make things happen on a grander scale. The old ways of doing things where you had, some broadcast media and politicians dictating what happened, that's kind of going out the drain. The people are taking back the power, and we're all just sharing what is important to us and finding the people that we connect with. All right. So that's a little bit about that. Now, yesterday I was talking about the host, and I accidentally deleted the last screen before I was able to finish it. And so I want to talk about fellow host. He's been with Spirituality Gone Wild for a while. I'm not 100% sure, so I better not say, but Scott Katamis, and he does a Sunday night show, and that show is called Saturday Night Alive, and he brings together a whole bunch of musical guests and other spiritual leader guests. He has a panel last Saturday night. He had a panel of about 7 or 8 different people, and they go through and they're doing not only entertainment, they're educating, and so it's something nice on a Saturday night. That came on at 9 p.m. Eastern time. That's a highly produced show. He's got his producer who works with him, and they do a lot of work in order to get that together. So please do watch that. Now let's see what else. This here is so our musical guest, the Plow Zone, and I did not mention the Plow Zone yesterday. So I'll there's another slide coming up, but it's going to talk about the 2 Scots who are hosting it. It really is a musical show, and so that show comes on. I don't know exactly when, and I think it's just a few times a week, but I'm not even sure about that. So I have to apologize to the Scots about not knowing exactly that. Hey, I'm learning. This is all brand new stuff for me, and it's a lot of information. So we're trying to figure it all out and get it up there. But one of the guests was Walter DeBar. He performed on Saturday, and it was great the way they bring these musicians in virtually and they perform. And no, it's not as nice as broadcast quality, but the heart is in it and people are enjoying it and getting it. So thank you, Walter, for joining in with us. And we had Jennifer Bell, who is a musician working out of the Nashville area, and she came in and joined us. And again, this is all through the Plow Zone. The Scott brothers, or not brothers, but the Scotts, Scott Reese and Scott Plow are the Plow Zone, and they're the ones who managed to arrange for all these musicians to perform for us. And let's see who else was with us. Fantuzzi. All right, Fantuzzi. He is a regular guest on a lot of different shows here. I've seen him a few times, different shows. So Fantuzzi he was at Woodstock at the age of 17, and he played with Santana. He was a guitar player on the stage at Woodstock at the age of 17, and that's 51 years ago, and here he is, still hanging out and performing regularly with us. So Fantuzzi, you will see him here on Spirituality Gone Wild on many different shows. And Love Planet is a husband and wife team, and they perform for us. I don't know a whole lot more about them at this point, other than they are Love Planet and they are friends of the show. So we welcome them and thank them for what they did for us. And here is the Plow Zone. So this is the Plow Zone radio show. Here it goes. It tells me Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, so 9 p.m. on the East Coast. And that would be 2:00 in the morning in London. And for you Aussies who watch this, you'll have to figure that out yourself. Probably pretty early in the morning, I'm guessing. Maybe about breakfast time for you guys. But Scott Plowman and Scott Reese are the two Scots who put together that show, and they have a whole big network of musicians that they regularly bring on board. So please tune in. That is on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. on the East Coast. All righty. So that is, I think that covers what I wanted to talk about as far as the the third anniversary party. So again, thank you all those performers who joined us, and thanks to the Plow Zone for arranging all of that. We had a great time, and it was nice because you had a lot of people delivering their message and talking about it, but then we had these musical interludes in between. So it was a really, really fun time. Thanks again, everybody who participated. All righty. So now I want to switch gears and get into my monologue. And a couple years ago, I read a book by William Bridges, and it was the name of the book is Managing Transitions, Making the Most of Change. And a friend of mine, she told me about it. And the reason why she recommended the book was specifically for what we call a neutral zone. And this is actually a picture I took a couple years ago when I was reading the book, and I went back online and found the little message a blurb I had written about it. But in our lives, we go through chapters, and of course, that's one of the life lessons from the movie Forrest Gump. One of the big three life lessons from the movie Gump. The first one is the feather that comes into your life, and those are the opportunities. The chocolate box represents the choices that we make. Life's like a box of chocolates. You get to choose whatever chocolate you want. You get to choose whatever life you want. And then the third one is the Nike shoe is the visual, but it's basically the life chapters, the journey of life, and how Forrest Gump went from being a boy to playing football to being in the Army to being a shrimp boat captain, the running across America. So we all go through these life chapters. And so I was at the time really coming to the end of my Montana chapter. And I had a vision for creating American Gumption and going out on the road and interviewing people, living and working from an RV. And that became the vision, more than a year ago when I really started that. And so I was like fully immersed in that process of getting rid of stuff and closing down Montana. So I was on the left-hand side, and what you're seeing as the black, where, I was at the ending, and, it wasn't over. The chapter wasn't over because I was still living there, and I was getting rid of stuff, and I was having yard sales, and I was donating things to different, different groups that take things that you can, and I was taking some things to the dump. And so anyways, getting rid of so I'm living there, and I have this new vision, which is the new beginning, American Gumption. That's the gray over on the right-hand side. And then in that middle is like a neutral zone. And so on October the 6th, I left Montana, drove away with a truck and a small U-Haul trailer attached to it, and filled with boxes, and that was it. That was my life at that point. So that was really when that set the side on the black, the Montana life chapter came to an end, and then I entered into a neutral zone, and that neutral zone lasted really for several months, and there was a lot of different phases of the neutral zone. But I ended up spending a couple of weeks in Kansas with my older brother, and then now here I am back on the East Coast, staying with my sister and brother-in-law, and so I'm in this neutral zone where it hasn't really started the new beginning. And of course, the new beginning is American Gumption. Now, my vision was to live and work from the road and the RV, and that still is going to happen. That's coming up and will be happening here in the next, not 100% sure exactly when, but we're on phase to make, or on plan to make that happen. So anyway, then in the meantime, you go ahead and you launch the American Gumption website on July the 7th. And so that becomes like a date, where this, is that the beginning? And then I meet Debbie G, and she invites me to be part of the Spirituality Gone Wild team, and I start the American Gumption morning show, and that begins last Monday on August 3rd. So is that the new beginning, or is the new beginning when you when you actually pull away in the RV? And in some ways it doesn't matter. They're all new beginnings. Each step is like a new beginning, and at some point, you really are immersed into that new world that you want to go. So, but that's the thing about these life chapters, is that they don't really have definitive, really neat, clean break off points, because you decide you're going to, create American Gumption. Well, that was the day, maybe that's the day it began, because that's the day the dream began, the day you first said it out loud. Or maybe it's the day that you start selling the first pieces of stuff that you have, the sofa, or maybe it's the day that you actually get in the car and drive away from Montana. So these endings and these beginnings are usually a little bit murky as far as when they start. But what's clear is that when you look back at them, you can definitely see that, okay, that used to be my life back in Montana. That's pretty much over now. And then these last 6 months, 8 months, I've been in what we're going to call a neutral zone, where the old has ended and the new hasn't really begun. And so it's kind of been fun it's fun for me to be in that neutral zone, because you have nothing but possibilities. When we were kids, we lived our lives in the neutral zone, because every day was a new beginning, and every day was an ending, because the previous day ended, and then you started a new beginning. And then of course you get older, and you take on more responsibilities. And once you end up in a job, you have to show up every day, and then you end up with family, and you have to take care of your family. And so, you don't have as much flexibility of getting out choices that you can make day in and day out. You have obligations, you have to fulfill them. So anyway, I wanted to share that neutral zone because that was a helpful thing for me to think about when I was going through it. Now, back to the movie. One last little point about that is the movie, Forrest Gump's chapters ended instantly and the new one began instantly, and it was just like there was no neutral zone at all. But that was the movies, because hey, in the 2.5 hours you had to show his whole life, so you didn't have time to dwell on it. So he was fully immersed in a chapter, and then boom, the next one, that one ended. And a perfect example of a chapter ending was when he was in the Army. He was playing ping pong, and he was practicing his ping pong game, bouncing the ball up against the wall there. And let's see, I'm going to change my screen here if I'm smart enough to do that. There we go. So he's bouncing the ball, he's practicing playing ping pong, and one of the other officers comes in and says, "Private Gump," and he goes to attention, and the officer says, "As you were," and he says, "You're discharged from the Army," and he gives him his discharge papers. And so then Gump says, "Does that mean I don't have to play ping pong, or that mean I can't play ping pong anymore?" And the officer says, "In the Army it does." So anyway, Forrest turns and he's looking backwards, like kind of wearily, and he like starts to just walk, and then he starts running, and he runs to the end of the gymnasium that he had been in practicing, and he goes out the door. And the next thing you see is he's back home. And so, that one chapter ended, the new chapter began, and he didn't stay long. And when he was back home, he ended up going out and buying a shrimp boat very shortly thereafter. And so he was in a little bit of a neutral zone, and we did see that, but it didn't last very long. And so neutral zones, they can be short or they can be longer. And that's the point of this. And so this book by William Bridges was just great, because it talks all about change and how do you make the most of change? How do you manage change and these transitions in our life? So that was a nice thing for me to go ahead and be involved in. So okay, that's pretty much that. I did want to share that with you, and I think it's important that we think about, we just don't go from one thing to the next without acknowledging that there has to be a little bit of grieving. There's grieving when one chapter ends, and there's excitement about the new chapter, but there's like you have to close the chapter down. I do remember a friend and coach who was helping me get rid of everything last year, and at one point I was just tired of getting rid of stuff, and I said, I just feel like getting in the car and going, and the heck with the rest of this stuff. And she said, "No, I get that." And she said, "But you won't feel good if you don't clean up what you have here, and you don't bring proper closure to it and put it to rest." So that's part of the, ending a chapter with integrity, ending a chapter by, eliminating the loose ends, threads that if you don't clean them up, you're going to walk away, and you're going to always have a nagging thought that, gee, I should have done this or I should have done that. So the best way for me to live life is not have a lot of shoulda, coulda, wouldas, so as a chapter comes to an end, you clean it up, you make sure that you leave it in good place, and then you move on, and then you're in that little bit of a neutral zone, and then eventually the new chapter begins. So I feel like I'm a lot closer to being immersed into my new chapter, especially with the start of the show, just like a week and a half, 10 days ago. And then, of course, the launching of the website. Been working on it, for the last couple of months behind the scenes. And so there's that, that's all taking you closer and closer. But you're at that point, you're at the end of that neutral zone, and you're at the beginning of it. And where's that exact delineation line? Rarely do you have an exact moment in time when, there's some days like the day I left Montana, October 6th. That's a pretty, you get in the car and you actually drive away from the place that you lived for the last 12 years. That's a pretty important date in terms of, like a marker. So anyway, that's today's monologue. All right. So I'm looking back in the green room and I see that we have a guest who is lined up here. So I think he looks like he's ready. He's had some of our delicious American Gumption coffee, and it looks like we're going to bring him on board. So let's see if we can add him here. And here's the way we're going to do this. Now, hello, Jeff. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm doing awesome. Yeah, it's a great day. And thanks for joining us here on the American Gumption Morning Show.
Absolutely. I wore my shirt just for the occasion. My life is an adventure shirt.
Yes. And I crafted my monologue because you're in a bit of a transition. But before we get into that, because that's what we're going to talk about today, you're in a neutral zone. You're in a, your old chapter has ended and, your new chapter is beginning, but you're not 100% sure what your new chapter even is. So you're definitely in a neutral zone at this point. But here's what I want to do. I want to introduce you by just reading a little bit of a bio so people get a sense of who you are. And then we have a way of welcoming our guest to the show. And let's see, I'm going to changing the banner there. Look, I'm putting there. That's how people are going to contact you. But what I do is I read the introduction and then I play a welcoming song. So rather than clap, we play a little song. So and then after that, it's going to be you and I. How's that sound?
That sounds awesome.
Great. So Jeff has led 3 different universities to national rankings during his 20 years as a collegiate coach, coaching women's volleyball. And most recently, he was at the Ohio State University. But more importantly, he became a part of his players' lives. He attended their weddings. He's been part of their lives when they became mothers, and he stood by them when they've had darker moments. Early on in Jeff's life, he was a Peace Corps volunteer in Central America, where he worked with gangs, taught at a school for the deaf, and developed youth retreats in the rainforest. And it was at this time that Jeff learned to listen to people as they told their stories. Listening, man, is that an important, really hearing people? That's a great skill. He witnessed the injustices that pervade so many impoverished communities. So he lived in third world countries, is what he's saying there, and felt the incredible human spirit that bridges us all. This is what spirituality is all about. We are all connected and there are no coincidences. We have a human spirit that connects all of us together. So today, Jeff has an infinitely patient wife named Sarah, and together they are the parents to 3 young boys that love adventure. And I imagine with a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, there is always adventure.
Never a dull moment. That's
never a dull moment. All right. Well, let's welcome our first time guest to the show here. And let's see, here it is. First time guest theme. All right. How was that, Jeff? Was that a good welcoming for you?
That was great. I feel like there's a band behind me and, cars, and I'm at some parade back home in Minnesota where I'm from. Remember, that brought up some good memories. Thank you for that.
All right. Well, welcome. So 3 universities that you coached for over the last 20 years. And I know Ohio State was most recent. What were the other 2 universities? Tell us just a little bit about your college coaching career, how it started.
Yeah, coaching kind of kept finding me. I I was gonna go and be a professor back when Minnesota, where I'm from, and I got my master's in social work at Minnesota. But in conjunction with that, when I was in the Peace Corps, I got a hold of a gentleman named Mike, who is a Hall of Famer. He passed away about a year ago, but he's been my mentor, was my mentor, brought me in as a volunteer assistant while I got my master's. So even in the Peace Corps, I coached the national teams. That wasn't my plan. That's not why I went down there. I went down there to work with gangs and work in the school for the deaf, but I ended up, they found out that I coached volleyball and ended up traveling all over Central America, coaching the Belizean national teams, men and women. So that was really my in there. So coaching kept finding me. And after my 2 years at the University of Minnesota, got my master's in social work. I took the job at Concordia St. Paul, which had just gone into a Division II, upgraded to a Division II program. They were 0-22 the year before, so I felt I couldn't do worse than 0. So anyone who's looking and aspiring to get into being a coach, don't take over a program that's never loses. Take over a program that never wins, and you can build it. So I was there for 3 years. That team became nationally ranked my last year, and my assistant that I hired for $2,000 has been there as a head coach ever since. Brady Starkey. He's done a great job. They've won 9 national championships. But I took over the job at Ohio University, which is the Bobcats down there in Athens, Ohio. I was very fortunate, again, through a few people I knew, Mike Hebert being one, knew the AD, and hired this completely unknown, 20-something-year-old guy. And those were some really great times down there. In 5 years, we had a lot of success down there, and ended up very difficult decision. Actually, people might not understand this, but got offered the job at Ohio State, and my wife and I, we didn't have kids at the time, and we knew we had a really good thing at Ohio University. I mean, very much a small fish, a big fish in a small pond. Had built a great community there. We had it dialed in. We were very successful. Loved the area, loved the people. But Big Ten jobs don't open up very often, and the opportunity presented itself. And I sort of leaned in on, what do I tell my student athletes? Get uncomfortable, challenge yourself, see what you can do. And that really was the leading factor for me to make that decision for us to move up to Columbus, just an hour and a half up north. And we were there for 12 years and had a lot of success up there in those 12 years. Last 3 years, we had quite a few unpredictable injuries. A very strange last 3 years. And yeah, on December 2nd, I was brought in and for the first time in my life, was told that they were going to go in a different direction. So it was the first time in my life I was let go, fired, whatever you want to call it. And, set me off on a new adventure.
And we, shortly thereafter that we met, sometime during the, first few months of this year. And, we connected on LinkedIn and just had a few little messages back and forth. And then the next thing you know, it was like, hey, let's just have a conversation. And I kind of knew I was going in this direction of American Gumption, but I was still very much in that neutral zone as far as what was going to happen. So we just had a talk, and I was just sort of fascinated by your story. And so then we got to know each other, and then we kept in touch. And of course, at the time, when we first met, you had plans, and you were going to go and live in Spain because you lost your job, you got the kids, and you go, gee, we have a unique opportunity to maybe do something a little different than what we were planning to do. You had a very abrupt end of one chapter. So fill in what happened with, your plan of what you were going to do for this coming year. And then of course, how it got derailed.
Yeah, absolutely. We, as a college coach, especially at the level of the Big Ten, the Power 5 conference, I'd seen a lot of other coaches and get let go. So my best friends always reminded me that it's not if, it's when. And I didn't really believe that. And, but it happened, and there we were. And in reality, it was a blessing in disguise, I think, in many, many ways. My children are 7, 5, and 3. We were given this space all of a sudden. It was a weird space. I'm not going to lie. It was super exhilarating and terrifying. And my wife and I sat down and we said, okay, what do we want to do? And I was very, very clear that I had no interest in jumping into a new job. No interest. I wanted to your point of your monologue, I wanted to give some space and have some closure and take a breath because, I didn't do a great job, I don't think, of finding balance between, which balance is an overused word, but when you're a college coach, it's pretty all consuming, and you're trying to be a good father, you're trying to be a good husband, you're trying to figure your own stuff out along the way. So all of a sudden I had this space and we said, okay, well, let's get in an RV, which you and I connected about. We'll get an RV with our kids and we'll travel around the national parks out west and for a couple months. And then we picked a spot. And after a lot of deliberation, we decided to go on the Mediterranean side of Spain. We'd found a place. We had a nanny who was coming with us, going to stay with us. That was really important to me, so we could really enjoy it. And she was just going to come because she wanted to be a part of what we were doing. And she'd been our babysitter for years. And then all of a sudden, bam, that got coronaed in March, and it became very clear. I remember we were in Breckenridge skiing, and that's when everything started going on. I was talking to our people in Spain, and they were concerned, but it wasn't that big of a deal. And then a week later, people were getting the last planes out of Spain, out of Madrid. So it happened, as everyone knows. I mean, things change real fast, and so we had to shift. And fortunately, we have a cabin up in northern Minnesota where we're from. It's a couple hours north, and we were trying to sell our house March 15th. If you can figure, March 15th was sort of in the middle of the storm, and we're trying to keep it clean with 3 kids. And I'm just like, let's go. Let's just get out of here. And so within 2 weeks, we had packed up our house, storage unit in Columbus, packed up our other stuff, got in our car with our 3 kids and our dog, and we drove and spent basically the last 3.5, 4 months up in a beautiful cabin up in northern Minnesota. It's shared by our families, and that was awesome. And what an incredible blessing, and so grateful for that. But the whole time, it's not our place. It wasn't. You're sort of just waiting out the storm, and that was, you couldn't be at a better place. But ultimately, the pull to go and catalyze and search for what's our next adventure started taking shape. And it was always, for me, it's always been out in the mountains. I was a ski bum and steamboat back 100 years ago. Loved it, and ever since then, I've been wanting to get back to the mountains. And now I finally had this space where we could go wherever we wanted. Like you said, we weren't following a job. Like I've been following a job for 20 years, and it was great, and I was very lucky. So fast forward, I am here. You can probably see some boxes or not see much in the background. We are in Evergreen, Colorado. I took a 10-day trip in my pickup truck and found a place. My wife has not even seen this place other than on video. She will be here in 5 hours. I'm a bit, talk about terrified. I'm hoping she likes it as I do. And but yeah, her and the 3 boys and the dog are coming out here, and we're gonna set up shop here in Evergreen, Colorado. And it's beautiful. It's amazing. Again, uncertain about what exactly the future holds for us, but I knew, and this has served very well. I knew if we didn't do it now, we may not ever do it, and I knew that I would always wonder. And so that feeling of sort of regret of not trying something has served me very, very well, and that really was the deciding factor, the push that I needed, and here we are. So I think our friends think we're a little bit crazy, but it's what we want to be doing, and here we are, and trusting the universe that things are gonna, as it always has, we will find the right people, and once you make a decision from the heart, the universe will take care of you.
Yeah, I love that. Following your heart, trusting the universe that things are going to work out. And I've had this kind of pull. Like I was lucky in that 15 years I got to sit on the bench and be Forrest Gump, and I knew there was like a life after that, but I didn't know how to make that work. And I just kept trying different versions of it and different versions. And when I look back, Montana and my 10 years in the mountains was kind of like, what really came out of that. It was like preparing for what I'm now going to go do for the next 5 or 10 years. And so I appreciate that you trusted your heart, and you said, we're going to go do the first. As a family, you said, okay, we're not going to go chase a job right away. And that was a great decision retrospectively, because there are no jobs necessarily to be had right at this moment, because nobody's playing. Like, the entire schedule is on hold for at least a year, and we'll see what happens after that. So, this sabbatical this imposed forced sabbatical came at a perfect time for you. Talk, just touch for a minute on, the trusting your heart and going with the flow in terms of like what you feel like you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an interesting person because I've found over the last, maybe 5-10 years, I'm a pretty big analyzer too. And so I'm a free spirit hyper analyzer, and those two things are sometimes very hard. As I'm talking to you, I right outside my door, there's a couple deer, elk, just kind of hanging out. So, this is where I live right now. And it's one of those things I have to keep reminding myself, like, this is, wow, it's actually been emotional a couple of times where we're actually here. We're living in Colorado. And, for me, I think, the challenge has always been, I'm a pretty motivated guy, but I also want to experience everything I can. And so when things ended at Ohio State, it's trying to reinvent yourself, and the timing was good, and it was also not great. But the whole point is, timing is what it is. And so I've really learned. You and I got to know each other. Been studying a lot of Buddhism. So Pema Chodron has been awesome for me. Just when things fall apart, and leaning in and being super curious. And so that's been my mantra, has been being curious about, okay, why am I feeling this way? Why am I nervous? Why am I afraid? Why am I excited? And so, along the way, I have to really tune in on what's really going on inside me. And you and I had a great conversation about that, and I always appreciated that. But I do think, how you and I met is symbolic of life. It's, you reach out, you connect, it's completely random, but then it's how you handle it. You and I could have just said, hey, what's going on? And that would have been it. But, something inside us wanted to connect a little bit more, and here we are. And I'm so excited for you that you had mentioned kind of what you're doing, wanted to do, and here you are doing it. And I think ultimately you'll be doing what you're doing right now in an RV. I can't wait to see that happen. But, what the pandemic has really showed us is just what's always been the case, is that life is uncertain, and you have today, and that's it. Coaching will do that for you as well. You beat Penn State on a Friday, and then you get your butt kicked by, Northwestern the next day, and it's you can't go high or too low. So coaching, especially coaching college volleyball, has really prepared me in so many ways. It's been like swinging 3 bats and dropping 2. And so for me, the struggle is really, okay, where do I want to put my energy? Because I've always had this team, and this purpose was, to grow this team, and also in some ways to win. That finite game versus the infinite game. I've been thinking a lot about that too. The infinite game is life. And you want to prepare yourself, and a lot of times the mindset you have as a coach is a finite game. And so for me, I'm taking all those lessons and putting them towards living out here and laying the foundation for my next chapter.
There's 2 things. I want to go back to the coaching just for 2 quick questions. And you just alluded to the one where, and this was from our first conversation, you said that with coaching, there was no time to enjoy the win other than like 10 minutes because you had to start preparing for the next game. And there was no time to mourn the loss because you had to start preparing for the next game. And so, it was, you were in the moment, and at the same time, it didn't allow you to necessarily, enjoy it a whole lot, because it was always like, okay, the next game. So that's one thing if you want to talk about. And then I have one other question about just coaching the athletes. I was thinking about, the talent, especially at Ohio State, had to be pretty high. Everybody comes in, they're good athletes. and then what makes the heart of a champion, and what makes a person just, not quite ever reach their potential. And if you have figured out any of that along the way, share that with us.
Well, if I figure that out, millionaire. But I think yeah, the question, that was me personally. Although a lot of my colleagues would say the same thing, is that when you win, it was like, oh my, thank God that we won. And when you lose, it was, if you're gonna be if you're gonna be a good coach, it's you put your blood, sweat, and tears into every single moment. And for me, I think I was getting better at that, but I think in the reality is I think I'd be a better coach today than I was the day before I got fired. Because I was coaching from a place of fear in a lot of ways, like just trying, and that's not a good place to do anything. And ultimately, it's not my decision. I mean, we didn't win enough at the end. We had, we were one of the top teams for 7 out of those 12 years, but I get it. I understand that. And that's what I signed up for. So I have no ill will or regrets, other than the fact that I probably wish I would have enjoyed it more. I wish I would have just relaxed a little bit more, a lot more at times. And having kids helped with that, but it also, you're trying to be a great dad and a great coach. And a lot of times I felt like I was just good at both. So now I'm being a really great dad, and I have a ton of time to be hanging out with my kids, and we moved to a place we want to raise them. So, yeah, college coaching is a very different vocation. I love it, and I'd like to get back into it at some point. And I think that I love working with student athletes. I mean, I think my favorite student athletes, your second question, were always the ones who had had to build up some resiliency because they'd had some challenges along the way, and like real challenges. I think a lot of times we manufacture challenges, whatever that might be, the drama, I think, as human beings. But the players who grew up on a farm and had to work, get up at 6 a.m. and work, or who had some sort of experience within their families, or something had happened that you wouldn't want to happen, you wouldn't ask it to happen yourself, but it builds resiliency. And those are the players who I think became the best. So talent all being the same, you have 2 kids who are equally talented. They're both 6'2", they both touch 10-3, they both have come from great programs. Give me the one who's had to work a little bit at it, who's had a job growing up. I mean, to me, learning the value of working and grinding, as a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old, that's invaluable. What you're going to be able to do when you sprain an ankle, when maybe you're not starting for the first time in your life, when you get a B, I had 6 or 7 players that had never gotten a B in their life. And when they get a B, it was hard. Some of them really had a hard time handling that failure, which I know you and I that just come from a different time where these were okay. But I think we're putting undue pressure and expectations in a lot of areas. And a lot of the student athletes are coming in and they just have never experienced anything that really resembles failure. So I love the players and gravitate towards the players. And frankly, the best players I ever coached were the ones who had a little bit of resiliency built up, and they made the mindset that they were gonna be resilient and learn from whatever came their way. So and that was one of my favorite things about was trying to coach that and teach that on the stage of college athletics at that age, 18 to 22. I think it's an incredible time to learn and grow. So that was my favorite part about coaching, was teaching resiliency and preparing these kids to get out there and crush life.
I'm going to share our screen here. Let's see if I can do that correctly. And this is, you've got a couple in a few weeks on August 22nd, you're going to be doing an event where you're going to be It's kind of a virtual online event, but it's basically about helping people who are going through the recruiting process, the families, the kids, the student athletes. Tell us about that. What's going to happen with that?
Yeah, I mean, I've done this informally. We did it actually with a lot of the American Volleyball Coaches Association did working with coaches on all levels, just trying to handle what's going on with COVID. I mean, it's a really stressful time because of the uncertainty, not just for student athletes and high school athletes and any athlete in any sport, but also for the coaches and the administrators too. So I'd done some of these along the way just informally, and it was great. And we just I'm really into storytelling. So you get a bunch of people in a room, and the Zoom room now, and you start sharing stories, and there's something cathartic and connecting with hearing other people maybe audibilize what you're feeling. Because I think a lot of times, especially now, we feel like, man, am I the only one feeling like this? Like, why me? Why now? And so what this is my buddy, I have one of my best friends from when we were in elementary school, is a marketing director at Yaymaker, and he's been talking to me about getting on and doing something for a few months. And I said, okay, let me just do something. It's really not about, it's recruiting to some extent, but the title is Navigating Recruiting in Life in the Time of COVID. So it's really about having conversations and talking to families about trying to normalize things a little bit, and also, getting a mindset that there's going to be two different groups, and I don't care whether you're a high school kid trying to make your varsity team, or you're a football player, or you're trying to start up your own podcast. It's you can either be a victim, or you can move forward and lean in and be curious and roll up your sleeves and get after it. And I think this time period is a real opportunity to get ahead in some ways, for lack of a better term. And so that's what we're going to talk about. Like, it's tough. Yeah. Let's just admit it. This sucks. It's hard. Now what? And so really engaging in conversations like, how do families talk? As a parent, how do you talk to your 14-year-old about, maybe not being able to play in their high school season? They've worked hard. Or, a 16, 17-year-old who this is their year to get recruited, and there's no volleyball going on. There's no sports. What's going on? And helping them understand, yeah, that's true, but it is really an opportunity because everyone's going through it. It's not just you. And, we've been doing this. I've done this 3 or 4 times, and it's pretty emotional because we get into it. Like, we roll up our sleeves, we get vulnerable. We have parents saying, I just don't want to mess up. What do I do? How do I handle this? I don't want to talk too much, but I don't want to not talk about it. And then you have kids telling their parents, like, hey, this is what I need from you. This is the timing of it. I need you to let go, or I need you to engage me more, or whatever it might be, because everyone's a little bit different. But, this thing on August 22nd, it's, we'll see. I hope we can get a lot of families there. And really, it's just about sharing their stories, past and present, but also, how do we prepare ourselves? Let's look forward, because life's going to throw more stuff at you. It's going to happen. We don't know when this pandemic's going to end. And when it does, there's going to be some other stuff that comes our way. And so for me, it's a great opportunity to get people in the room and talk about building resiliency and mindset, and being curious about what we're going through right now. And all of us are going through it. So, yeah, I'm excited. If anyone wants to join in, I'd love to have you.
Hey, Jeff, I'm showing a quote on screen. It's from Miriam Santana, and she says, "What a beautiful story, coaching volleyball sport. The world used to see the word coach refers to sports, and really coach it refers to all of life. It's and then she makes that point in another quote, and finally she just says, hey, you've done both. You're coaching a sport, and you're coaching both of those. So thank you, Miriam, for sharing that comment. And I have one more quote I want to just share here. Our co-founder, Karen Palmer of Spirituality Gone Wild, it sends a message really to me, but the both of us so grateful to have joined the family here. A great show, an awesome message. So thank you, Karen. So yes, we've been having fun with this. Have just a couple more minutes left, and there's a few more things I wanted to get into with Jeff about. So here's the deal. You left 10, 12 days ago. you're in Minnesota, you drive to the Denver area, you look for some houses at some different places, and you don't find kind of what you're looking for, and you get bored with looking there, and you take a drive up to another little community, and then you see the place and you go, oh my gosh, I think this is it. And then you go ahead and sign up for it. And your wife and the boys are showing up in 5 hours from now, and they have not seen the place. What am I missing, Jeff?
That's pretty much it. But that's the beauty of having a partner like you, right? I mean, she's Sarah, my wife, is awesome. And, I think I'll be honest, like part of the reason why we're doing this is because, I'm writing a book, and I want to coach, and maybe it won't be coaching in a college scene. I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with that, but I'm going to coach. And when I talk about coaching, it's about teaching, it's about growing, it's about sharing. For me, one of the things I've learned, and I was learning a lot in my last 3, 4, or 5 years of coaching, was allowing myself to be vulnerable in front of my players and being honest and letting them know I'm not perfect. A lot of times you want to have all the answers as a coach, and I got over that. And I think maybe having kids and not being a perfect person and showing that imperfection to young women, especially, I think is really powerful. But really one of the things was like, okay, how can my message of going for it, how can my message of, come from a place of love, not fear? I mean, that's a big thing for me, is making decisions out of love, not fear. How can I do that if I'm not going to do this? Like, this is something I know is in me. It's been in me for years and years and years. And I don't regret not doing it, because I've had a great career, and I'll continue to have a career. Whether that's coaching or something else, I'm not positive, but how can I look my student athletes in the future, or look at whoever I'm going to work with? I was in the Peace Corps working with gangs. How do I look at them and tell them to, hey, follow your bliss, follow your heart. If I wasn't going to do this, I would have felt a little bit of an imposter. So, it is people who, my friends, are like, you're what? Do you have a job? I'm like, no, I don't. And for the first time since I was 14, I don't have a job. And that's really liberating and exciting. But I mean, yeah, it's I get to practice that leaning in and being curious about that. Like, why am I so, at times, really freaked out about not knowing what I'm going to do when I grow up? And I'm 50 and have kids, and that changes things. Like, when I was 20, I was like, yeah, whatever. But again, if I didn't do this, how can I write the book I'm writing? The book I'm writing is my younger self talking to my older self. So what do we always tell, if a 21-year-old comes up and says, oh, I could take this job, but I really want to go travel the world, I want to go to Australia. Like, go, man, go to Australia. You got to do it, because once you get a job and a family and a car payment, you're not going to do it. So go explore. And then the other part of the dialogue is like, well, the 21-year-old's going like, okay, well, what are you doing? How come you got so lame? You're not doing any of this stuff. And so I'm writing this book of, really an inner dialogue between your younger self and your older self. And I'm at a point now where I got to listen to that younger self saying, look, you have this opportunity. You can either be a victim and just sort of grind out and just, go out and rage against the dying of the light, and you can go and practice. So I'm doing that, writing my life story. But if I didn't do this, I don't know. I mean, I'm just not living, saying it wouldn't be reflective of what I'm trying to coach and the type of coach I want to be. So
the younger self knows what he wants. The older self knows what he doesn't want. And maybe that's a little bit of what's going to happen here with the book. I'm not trying to suggest what to do, but that just occurred to me.
Yeah, and I'm just, having kids, I'm just writing my story. I mean, it's been fun just getting it down on paper, and if no one ends up reading it, then at least my kids will have something in their hands to, from my point of view of, from my time in the Peace Corps when I was in South Africa or backpacking Europe or going through, getting fired. I want them to hear it from me. So I'm not writing it to be a bestseller. I'm writing it because ultimately my audience, I know who my audience is. Once I had my kids, that's my audience. And so it's been fun. It's been a good experience. I've put it down for a few weeks right now, so I got to get back into it. But it's been fun, and that's something I've always wanted to do, but I haven't had the time. So now I do have that.
So last question, when we talked a few days ago, you said you love golfing, and now you're taking your 5 and your 7-year out on the golf course for several hours at a time. The 3-year-old can stay home with mom, and so she gets a break, and the other kids. And you used to feel guilty about going and golfing because you were either not working or you were not with the family. So just wrap up with that story.
Yeah, well, sometimes I'll take the 3-year-old too, and that makes for, I'm not real focused on my game. Not that I have much of a game, but yeah, we have a golf course 2 miles from here. But more importantly, when we were in our cabin, there was a really nice golf course just down the road, and we had an old set of clubs, and my 7-year-old and 5-year-old we just started kind of hacking away, and they love it. And so for me, I mean, my first job I had was a caddy. Back in the day, my claim to fame was I actually carried Arnold Palmer's bag from his car, onto the course back in the day at Golden Valley Country Club. But I've always loved golfing, but I've golfed more in the last 3 months than I have in the previous 10 years. I mean, but now I can go and enjoy it with my kids, and they've really loved it. So yeah, it's a win-win because I get to go out, I get to get some exercise, get to be with my kids, and then give Sarah a little bit of a break. So guilt-free golf it's unheard of. I don't even know, it's great, but it's guilt-free golf, and so I'm very excited get out there and start doing that again here in Colorado. The ball travels a little bit further out in Colorado, so that'll be exciting.
It makes you feel like you're stronger in terms of what you can do.
Yeah,
all right. Well, hey, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. We're coming to the top of the hour, so I'm going to have to sign off here just in a minute, and I'll have a couple quick announcements. So I do want to really thank you, and a couple things I'd like to throw out there. When I'm out on the road, no matter where you are, you could be somewhere different by then. I might just, when I know where you're at, I might just drive by and stop and visit you. And then the other thing is good luck with with the family showing up this afternoon, and then the next few months to get that book written. And would you consider coming back and filling us in a few months of what's happened?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'd love to have you drive by too. That'd be fun. But, and thank you for the comments that people made as well. And yeah, for sure. We'll be here. So get in that RV and we'll meet up and go grab some coffee and we'll catch up.
That sounds great. Well, thank you, Jeff, for joining us this morning. And so I'm going to go ahead and just wrap up at this point and let everybody know that we appreciate your tuning in to the American Gumption Morning Show. We're starting to get a little bit of a rhythm going here. It's feeling more natural. This is show number 8. Looking forward to doing a full set of shows again next week and the week after. And we're just, like I said, getting on a roll with this whole thing. So want to thank everybody. I do have a guest tomorrow, and our guest is going to be Safe Bucksy. He's one of the hosts of Spirituality Gone Wild. He does a show called Safe Surgery, and I'm going to let him explain what that is. And so that appears on Thursday afternoons in the U.S. It's in the evening in the UK. So anyway, we'll have Safe on tomorrow to tell us all about his show. And I'll come up with something to talk about before we welcome him. So anyway, thank you everybody for joining us today. It's a great day out here on the East Coast, summertime. Hope you're enjoying it wherever you are, and have a great, safe day. Don't be afraid to take that chance. And what opportunity is sitting there in front of you that maybe you're not taking advantage of. COVID has, gave Jeff a whole new perspective on how the world works. Getting fired, gave him that perspective to begin with, but then COVID changed all his plans. So whatever your plans are, if they've been changed and disrupted, I encourage you to go ahead and just see what's in front of you and pick up that feather. There could be a couple of feathers lying right at your feet that are just waiting for you to grab and change the direction of your life. So anyway, have a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning.